The Marvels has hit theaters. Is this the end of the MCU as we know it? Find out that today and more on today's episode of Breaking Geek Radio, the podcast.
That was Joseph Gemmer Medina. I'm Brandon Jones. And as he said, this is Breaking Geek Radio, the podcast, the premier flagship and international podcast of the Genreverse Podcast Network and your hearts. And your hearts. Yeah. So, Captain Marvel, the sequel, The Marvels. It has a 61% on Rotten Tomatoes from the critics and an 85% from the audience. And in summary, Carol Danvers, a.k.a. Captain Marvel, has reclaimed her identity from the tyrannical Kree and taken revenge on the Supreme Intelligence. But unintended consequences see Carol shouldering the burden of a destabilized universe. When her duties and her anomalous wormhole linked to a Kree revolutionary, her powers become entangled with the Jersey City superhero Kamala Khan, aka Miss Marvel, and Carol's estranged niece, now Saber astronaut Captain Monica Rambeau. Jammer, what did you think of this film?
So in short, I thought The Marvels was a fun ride full of characters with fantastic chemistry, but it was also kind of a mess. It was also kind of, oh man. We'll dig a bit deeper into it later, but I'd say it's probably one of the sloppiest Marvel films to date in my mind in terms of plot and just filmmaking. But there was enough good for me to see overall still give it sort of a positive review. I left the theater mostly feeling positive. I like the characters, and I think it also did a lot to kind of give Carol Danvers personality that we haven't gotten from her over the past several movies, however movies she's been involved in, which I think was a huge plus. I think you can kind of see some of the stuff about the behind the scenes issues with Marvel with regards to its production cycle and how that works. I saw a lot of kind of cracks in the armor, so to speak, just on full display here. But that's kind of my short review. I think I give it a C+.
Okay. I think I'm going to side with the audience score on this one at an 85. So I would say that this film is at least a very solid B. And but for Secret Invasion, I could have been talked into a B+. I will say that given that this franchise is 15 years old at this point, I'm a little surprised that we're still dealing with this weird villain issue where,
oh my god, every second she was on screen, I was like, I'm zoning out.
Absolutely, unbelievably forgettable. Like, and what's sucks about that is I really dug the plot purpose of getting her motivated and moving. Like, I thought that was such a good motivation, something you could get behind. But like her as a character was just like, just bad, just terrible. And I think that the real triumph of this film was making me care about what's going to happen to these characters next and making me want to know. Because after 2019's Captain Marvel, I was like, whatever, I don't care. I did not finish Miss Marvel. And that's the other thing about this film. I famously do not like children in media. And I think what they did such a good job of, and what I realized, one of the reasons why I don't like kids in projects like this is because I think that writers and directors, when they have kids that behave this way sometimes, like Peter Parker, the way he was when he met Tony Stark, it's annoying to me. And I don't like that. But what I loved about this film is that you had, hey, listen, that's just what it is.
Yeah.
I think that those people are like, they're putting themselves in the minds of that character when really, as I watch the film, I'm Monica Rambeau and I'm rolling my eyes at like this bullshit. And so that's what I really appreciate, is that you had this quote unquote foil to that kind of fan worshiping behavior. Hero worshiping behavior, where there was somebody literally rolling their eyes every time she was like, oh my God, Captain Marvel. And like, Monica's like, what, Jesus Christ. So yeah, I really like that.
Kids.
But fucking kids. But yeah, let's talk about this film. Let's get into spoilers.
Well, I want to talk. I want to talk really quick. Go ahead.
You can still talk about it in spoilers, right?
Yeah.
No? Okay.
Yeah.
So you were talking about the cracks in the armor. So the thing that you interrupted me about, please talk about that. But also the cracks in the armor. Like let's talk about that.
Well, I do want to talk about one of the things that I really liked, and that like was the chemistry between
I gave you the three. I gave you the opening.
The three. All right, I want to talk about the three characters. And what I liked about it is what they provided, how well they complemented each other. You literally just have three sides of a three-sided
hole.
I guess a triangle. There you go.
Three sides of a hole.
Oh, a hole. Gotcha. Not a HOLE, a WHOLE. I got very confused for a second. Where you have the brain, the brawn, and the heart, and just like the different parts that they make of like a whole human being. Where, you know, Monica Rambeau, she's the smart one. Captain Marvel just punches things, and then Ms. Marvel, it's like, hey, let's be empathetic towards each other. Like, the part that I realized that was that moment where, you know, Monica Rambeau was freaking out about stuff because obviously I forgot what it was specifically, but she was mad at Captain Marvel, and then like what's her name? Ms. Marvel hugged her and was like looking over to Carol Danvers, just like, okay, here's the part where we hug. Come over here, do this. Like, it's just how they kind of complete each other. I thought that was really cool, and I liked it a lot in theory and mostly in execution. I thought the bonding moments between all of them were really, really strong, and I wanted to see more of that, frankly. But we had a plot to deal with, a story that had to do with things, and I was bored by the villain. And I'm like, I kind of whenever something regarding the stakes came up, I'm like zoning out. Throughout the whole movie, you know what it felt like? It felt like I was watching a Mission Impossible movie where I didn't really know what was going on, but I'm just like, sure, we're here now. Okay,
I don't know about that.
This is happening.
I'm gonna disagree with you because you know, like Mission Impossible. I always know what's going on.
But it wasn't that confusing. Probably, okay, I'm assuming. I'm assuming it wasn't that confusing. But they didn't make it interesting enough for me not to zone out when they were expositing. That is the problem. I was so bored when they were expositing. Like when in the scene where you had what's her name? I don't know, villain lady.
I think it's Barden.
Talking to the Skrulls. Skrulls? Yeah, the Skrulls, and being like, we need your help, this and that. And I was zoned out. I got bored.
You know what? I zoned out during that scene because I'm just so fucking over the Skrulls. Like, I'm just done. Like, I didn't
finish
again.
Secret Invasion, so I don't know what the current state of the Skrulls are.
It's terrible.
No, I know.
You know what's funny? Wait. Here's what's funny about that. I'm gonna let you finish, Taylor, but let me jump in here. I know that here's the thing that bothers me about Secret Invasion. It's the fact that Sam Jackson, Nick Fury, has a whole fucking wife, right? That we never knew about, that showed up in Secret Invasion. And I just knew that as he's up on this space station, there would be some scenes, some acknowledgement, something. Nothing. Like, it never came up. Like, and I was like, what the fuck was the point of any of that stuff? So, like, if there was any
if this takes place before or after Secret Invasion?
This is after.
This is after. Okay.
This is after. And so, like, just any hope of there being like some emotional heft or weight to Secret Invasion is just gone, right? Or having it carry forward or something. Like, I was just like, now I can really not give a fuck about that show, because that was the only kernel of curiosity I had from that show. So I'm sorry. Go ahead. Continue.
So now let's talk about what I talked about, the cracks in the armor.
Okay.
It was mostly in the script and the filmmaking. That's a lot. But so more than any other MCU movie, I just felt I saw the strings a lot. So there are a couple parts here, just as an example, that are kind of microcosms, where there is the scene where Ms. Marvel has like this stuffed animal, and she's like being nice to the little Skrull boy and be like, it's okay, we're gonna get your family back to you. That scene to me felt like a reshoot scene. Like, oh, we need a moment where we show that she's brave, so let's do that. Let's just have this little scene where it, like, the whole movie stops just to show how kind she is. It felt like a studio note. And then there was another part where Carol Danvers and Monica Rambeau, like, she just started fixing some part of her ship. She's like, you want some help? And there's not really, it felt like another scene where it's like, oh, we need an extra scene where they're bonding. Let's just say for some reason, a part of her ship got hurt, and for some reason she doesn't know how to fix it very well, even though she's been doing this for decades. And there's like just a lot of little things like that where it just felt like, let's just insert this here and let's just insert this here, and it just made the whole movie feel kind of like really choppy. And I think what doesn't also help is, in addition to those script ads, what it feels like a script ad, it may not be, but it felt like one, is that the filmmaking feels like it's getting worse. And maybe that has everything to do with maybe just their visual effects pipeline being so ridiculous. Because you know me, if the visual effects aren't perfect, it's usually okay. But there were so many distractingly awful shots in this movie with the visuals that it really pulled me out. So there was that one Skrull planet that got destroyed. There was a shot that I swear could have been a PS3 game. There was like another part where Nick Fury is flying that ship out of the thing, and they almost get sucked into a hole before the hole farts and like gets them out. There's like it looks the actual look of the ship itself is too smooth. It doesn't look right at all. And there's just like so many things between that and the choppy scenes. It just feels kind of mishmashed together in a way that feels very sloppy, and it just seems like the end result of a production company that doesn't have enough time or resources or skill from the director or in order to finish the movie effectively.
So I will say my analogy is always about driving a car, right? If it's a smooth ride, there are less things that I notice. And for me, there was so much that I did enjoy about it. So you already talked about the chemistry. Love the chemistry. The scene that the two scenes that you referenced, like I didn't really notice. You're probably right about the thing about the ship needing to be fixed. But I thought that the scene was value add because it explained the look and the feeling from WandaVision, right? So when Captain Marvel gets mentioned in WandaVision, you see Monica kind of like, and you're like, what is that? What does that mean? And there's no payoff for that. And so in this, you get to understand like her emotion and her reason. I do think that it was the moment was manufactured or engineered.
That's what it was.
But the feelings that were displayed and like that rationale and that reason I found to be value add in the movie. So I immediately did think that like once she did her little light thing and then like walked off, I did think like, that's like, you're not going to check and see if that's it. If she's done, it's like, okay, well, but I liked what that scene meant for those characters and that development in that moment, because it moved that emotional payoff forward. I found
well, I want to add on that. Like,
okay,
I agree that that moment, that's why it feels like a studio note, because the moment feels manufactured. It feels like something they had to incorporate into what was already pre-established, and that's why it felt manufactured. It didn't feel like a natural progression of the script. It felt like something that was just plunked in.
Yeah,
and I understand why its function, as you mentioned. I get the function, but the circumstances felt manufactured. Anyway, sorry, continue.
No, I liked the action.
And
the complexity of the action is part of what made it so fun, right? It's not just a fight scene. It's a fight scene where these three people are switching places, going different locations, and all of that happening at the same time made it visually fun to watch. And I also thought that this movie was
exhilarating. It was so fun. That first fight scene, oh my God, it was so good. Like,
it was a lot of fun. I also thought this movie, again, you talked about how Carol Danvers was more of a human in this than she's allowed to previously be. This movie had so much humor in it, and like appropriate humor. Because I think there are some Marvel films where something happens and somebody's just like waiting to say a funny thing, right? Like there's a moment that just gets ruined by somebody needing to tell a joke. And I thought that the humor in this was much more natural and a lot more so like when they get to the water, or not the water planet, but also the music planet. I loved that scene where Monica like tries to walk up to the child and talk to the child. It's not a joke, right? But it's just weird. A funny moment. It's just a weird moment where
situation
she's like,
comedy, as it were.
She's like, hello, little girl. And like the child just fucking ignores her. And she's like, yeah, unless you're singing, they can't hear you. And then the explanation for why the prince could talk, like, oh, he doesn't have to sing.
He's bilingual.
He's bilingual. Like it was so good. And it feels like the kind of humor that Love and Thunder was going for, but just missed. And I thought that this did such a much better job of that. So like, in addition to that, so what I loved about this film is you've got the found family of these three individuals, but then you've also got the actual family of Kamala Khan. And I could not, in talking about this film, without mentioning like how well I thought they fit in this film. They just like having the mom and the dad on the screen, and to a lesser extent the brother. I loved it. As someone who absolutely could not stand the first film, I thought that they did such a good job of making this into an enjoyable film. And I don't know if that is, I don't know what I would attribute that to, but I like this film much better than the first one. And to your point, I thought that this portrayal of Captain Marvel was much better.
It has more personality, and I think what it does is it puts her, because the first movie and continuing on, it's just like, oh, she's really strong.
Yeah.
She's kind of emotionless. But the thing about it is I almost think in retrospect it makes those better because emotions just make her uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like they just do. And she's so driven by what she has to do. She doesn't have time to deal with all the other stuff. And you kind of get in this where it's like these two characters force her to do that, make her uncomfortable, and give her personality. So like you said, they're nice, like they're nice, they complete the triangle together of personality. They bring out the best of each other in a fun way. And leading up to that water planet, where the moment where, well, they ask Captain Marvel about the planet and she says yes in a weird way, and then Kamala's just like,
what is
she
that?
said that really weird, didn't she? Like that was really funny. And then they had a lot of like really great moments, and the montage was super fun of them learning their abilities and them practicing. Like when they did, where she's like, okay, on 3, 1, 2, 3, go. And then she's like, why would you say go if you meant on 3? Or why would you do that?
Yeah.
And just those little things throughout were really cute. And just, I wanted more of that. I wanted less of the boring plot. But I understand the plot has to happen. I get it. But honestly, it kind of also made me want a TV show. And another reason why, sorry, one more thing before we close out, because there's a lot of the problem I also had was that there was this ghost of a second Captain Marvel movie that we didn't see. It was weird to me that we had all of this stuff. It's like, oh, she went and she did this whole other thing in a time that we didn't see. That, like when she went and destroyed like the
AI,
whatever, the AI of the Hala planet and stuff, and it just felt weird that like it felt like we were missing something. I'm missing fine with that. A story.
Anything related to that first film, I don't need more of. I'm good.
Yeah, it was just weird. And that's another thing that added to make it feel sloppy. It just felt like they were filling in little bumps on the road, and I could see the spackle. I could see the pieces, the darker pieces of tar on the road, and then occasionally I would hit a pothole. Yes, I still was able to drive across the road, but I could still judge and be like, yeah, the city really should take care of those potholes a little bit better. That's kind of how I felt watching this movie.
So let me ask you, we got 2 relatively consequential post-credit scenes. Are those wrapped up in the things that you would like to talk about? Post-review?
What do you mean? Oh,
what do you mean? What I mean? There
are
things that you would like to talk about related to the Marvel Universe.
One of the sure. Yes, sure. Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Are you guys sure you want to include the spoilers at the end of this movie in your news discussion?
Yeah, that's a good point. Why don't we just have a separate little section here that is post-credit scene?
There you go.
Like 3 minutes.
I think that sounds good.
All right, run it. First one's very easy. I give 0 fucks about the Young Avengers. Move the fuck
How
on.
Very dare you? Here's how I think how you differ from most people.
I'm 23. I don't give a shit.
I loved the Hawkeye show. I loved the Hawkeye show so much, and I liked what's her name? Kate Barton. Is that right?
You love it so much.
Not Kate Barton. No, that's not. What the fuck's her name?
Bishop.
Kate Bishop. I merged her name with what's his name, Clint Barton. Yeah, Kate Bishop. I like her character a lot. I like her character, and I liked Hawkeye show. And it was weird. I didn't feel like there was a build up to that. Like she's like, oh yeah, and then cut to her being Nick Fury, and I'm like, wait, what did that have to do with what you were talking about? I didn't understand it.
Yeah, you know what? Part of the reason I didn't care about the Young Avengers to begin with, and then the setup made me care even less. Right? Like, so why do we need this Young Avengers team? Why? Like,
yeah, I agree.
What's the thing?
No, I agree. There is no why. Yeah, which is why it was jarring. But
it doesn't make me. Yeah,
I like the thing is I like both of those characters though. I like both those characters. I'm like, all right, I'll see y'all interact, and I like Yelena and how she interacts with Kate Bishop. I like the characters separately. By the time
they squirt that fucking film or TV series out, they will just be the Avengers, not the Young Avengers.
Okay.
Moving on. Ready?
Oh yeah. So the next
motherfucking X-Men. No, like there's only yeah, I get it. Meh. I take Kyle's point that he made in Discord that it's a day late and $1 short. However, here's my rebuttal to that. Okay. I still want it. Here's what I like about it. I like that they did the thing that I said that they would always have to do, right? That these mutants couldn't have already existed within this universe, because like the whole conceit for the X-Men is that they're hated, right? They're hated for who they are. They're hated for what they do. And so I like that at least in the setup for this, like we understand if these are the Fox X-Men, which we could probably
one of the Fox X-Men's.
Yeah, like
I'm convinced that most of those movies take place on completely different universes from each other.
They do. It's going to be an amalgamation.
Yeah. I'm not 100% sold that it's that. And I think it's a reason why you get a CGI beast that is still voiced by Kelsey Grammer. It's the same reason why Charles Xavier got killed in Multiverse of Madness, because that's not the one that we know, despite looking and sounding like that. The other thing that I liked about this film was, unlike the stinger from Multiverse of Madness or Eternals, where it's like, hey, it's Harry Styles. Hey, it's Charlize Theron. Like, this was more story centric and more like, hey, this is what we're going to do.
It wasn't stunt casting.
Yeah, it wasn't a stunt. And so there was a discussion in Discord about somebody saying that they were confused as to, or they did not like, the word was confused, but I'm going to say did not like that Maria Rambeau was both a version of Captain Marvel and binary. I think it makes sense to me, because during a discussion between Carol and Maria, she said to Maria, like, it should have been you. So that explains why she's a Captain Marvel variant, because like somewhere in the logic of the universe, it could have been her. But I like that she's this character binary in the X-Men universe, because we have these characters that appear in comic books and just general media where they're meant to be quote unquote special, right? They're always going to be somebody. And what I liked about them casting her as binary is it gives you that automatic emotional connection with Monica Rambeau. So you're already emotionally invested somehow in this universe a little bit more than you would ordinarily be. So I like that. And that worked for me. And I also thought it was interesting that Kamala Khan's already been confirmed as this universe's first mutant, or a mutant in this universe. The fact that she wasn't the one to meet the X-Men lets me know that they're at least trying to build some sort of emotional connection that is not necessarily just that. They're not just going to slap you in the face with it. They're building something with it. At least I hope that's where they're going with it. So I like that.
I got a question on the whole X-Men thing, because I read a bunch of books, for ages.
Brag about it.
Yeah, right. Messiah Complex. Did you ever read that one, Jonesy? Like,
I know of it, I did not read it.
Okay, so after Wanda's no more mutants, you literally have no new ones built. A bunch of them lose their powers, and then one is born. No more are built. I think I said no more are born. And then one is born, becomes Hope Summers. Kyle, I read books. Yes, I do. Not much anymore. and damn it, you derailed me. Hope Summers. Anyways, I always thought that would have been a really cool way to bring the X-Men in multiversally. You have the new MCU's X-Men movies starting at the end of WandaVision. Wanda gets into their universe looking for two boys. She creates the No More Mutants, and you have a Messiah complex. And the whole thing is them coming into finding refuge in the primary MCU, away from the hatred. So you have a lot of intact backstories. And the idea of just amalgamating some of it for the old characters and then just having all of your younger, more newly created mutants coming from, the primary MCU. I don't know. It feels kind of messy. How are you feeling about it?
Because I don't know what they're going to do with it. Let me put it this way. I like that they've done it this way, because then people like you don't know what to expect and you won't be bothered by not getting what you want.
So he seems pretty bothered about potentially not getting what he wants right now.
Sure. No, not so much that. I mean, I'm very much against bringing Foxmen back. Like, I think Kelsey Grammer was a great choice.
Foxmen, is that it? Is that a term people use?
Yes.
Foxmen.
Yes. We've had this
I've never heard that
before. Yes.
Yeah.
So I think Grammer was a great choice, and I'm glad that it wasn't just the same him in the makeup. But I'm not into the Foxman thing at all. Like, I don't even want to watch Deadpool kill the Foxman. I don't. I just want it to be dead.
I'm just pretend it
died. Get your wish.
I mean,
yeah.
Yeah. But, given the aesthetic, it will be some amalgamation of those universes. I think that it looks close enough to that, kind of gray, white, and blue aesthetic. So, I'm really curious.
Secret Wars will definitely combine not just the 84 book, but the 2015 merging of universes.
Yeah.
That's the big thing. Yep.
Yeah, that's what I think too.
Is anybody watching Loki at all?
Yes.
I've only watched the first couple episodes, but there's that one room where every single time the doors open or close, I'm like,
oh yeah,
I think that's the Dr. Xavier's freaking thing.
Yeah.
And it's not. I had to remind myself, this is not an X-Men knot. This is just a room that has like one of those doors that looks like it could be an X-Men door. I guess it could be.
But you should finish it though.
Oh yeah, I'm going to. I love it.
So no, I'm telling you, like it's very like I think it lulls in the middle, but I think it's really good. Yeah, I think it's a strong ending.
Like Loki, like I watched the first couple episodes. I'm like, I really love this show. Like the vibe, the aesthetic, the mind bending stories are pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like it's just great.
Which was funny because I think this could be a good transition to the Variety article. I thought just the imagery of the Variety article was interesting, where you have Iron Man bringing up, the I don't know what you would call it, the graph, right? The profits of whatever of Disney/Marvel. And then you had Loki at the bottom with all of the new folks that are going to come out of this. And I couldn't tell why he was there or representative of kind of like a low point in Marvel. And I wondered if that is because even though it is good, there's just now a perception of Marvel generally that will stop people from even wanting to watch it. So
I think that's exactly it. Like even though Loki is a high point and a low point, it's still happening in the midst of a low point of the franchise.
Well, I'll say this, and I think we can move off the review and confidently transition into that. Between this and Captain Marvel, I'm heartened. I'm sorry, the Marvels, I'm heartened. But I'm not back in yet. I'm really curious. So
yeah, I mean, we can transition into the state of Marvel, but I think the Marvels itself still has a symptom of things that are like, I don't know, symptom of issues that are still coming from an earlier time and still coming from. Let me explain for a second. So, for example, we still don't really understand what and why the multiverse is happening.
I don't think they do either.
Yeah, I know, but you're right, because you're right. You had a Multiverse of Madness version, you have a No Way Home version, you have a Loki version, and then we even peered into this at the end of the Marvels. And so I read that book, the MCU, and they had a little bit in it. And I don't remember if this is something we knew already, but like it probably was. But they really talked about how partially that Multiverse was supposed to come out before Spider-Man No Way Home, and Sony refused to move it, and they had to rework Multiverse in order to make that happen. And I wonder how much of a wrench that threw into everything, because the plan was to introduce the multiverse with Doctor Strange and then go into No Way Home. And now that's not the case. And now everyone is doing multiverse in their own way, and it doesn't really make any sense. So I feel like that is kind of a microcosm of the overall issues with the state of Marvel, is that they're juggling too many plates at the same time. Kevin Feige, as we saw in those things, is spread too thin, and it's leading to a misalignment of schedules. It's leading to a bunch of like pipeline.
What do you think would fix that?
VFX pipeline. Well, you all been saying this for a long time. We've all been saying this for a long time. They need to have fewer projects. They need to have fewer projects, and well, specifically, and there's like a bunch of things that there's so many problems. It's hard to pinpoint maybe what the main problem is or what other things matter and which don't. Like, for example, that Variety article pointed out that Nia DaCosta, the Marvel's director, wasn't present for the post-production of the film. And by that, to be clear, she just wasn't physically present. She was still doing stuff for it remotely, but wasn't present. Man, one thing, I do think needs to be pointed out is that this is not new. This happens.
I was about to ask you, can you explain that to me? Because like I don't know what that means for, like, if I don't know if it's normal for a Marvel movie, but I know that it's happened all of the time. It happens all the time in terms of directors. It's like they like Steven Spielberg does a billion movies, and whenever he's done shooting one movie, he just hops over to the other movie, and it kind of goes on autopilot, from what I understand. I'm sure he has some input, but by that point, I think his vision is kind of in the can, and they're really just executing it from there. And it sounds like that's what happened here. Like, I know she went on to do another movie with Tessa Thompson. Okay.
Yes, exactly. So what I think, which is why we have to take some of this stuff with a grain of salt, not all of it, but some of it, is there seems to be like, because there's so many other problems, this just fits the narrative of lots of issues, even if maybe they don't directly contribute to the issues. Now, maybe this is a microcosm, like another bigger issue, in that they need to stop getting directors who haven't had visual effects heavy movies in the future, so that things don't look as sloppy as this, or we don't get another Thor Love and Thunder type thing where everything just looks super fake and weird. Like, you actually have these directors who know how to handle visual effects and can set things up properly so that it is not all last minute fixes and whatnot. Like, maybe that's a part of it, but I don't think this is. But yeah, let's as we mentioned before, Feige is spread incredibly thin. And as the report says, the year 2023 was the straw that broke the camel's back. And specifically with regards to VFX, the pay and long hours at Marvel were the reason they had to start unionizing. Conditions were completely unsustainable. And I do have one question. What do you think? So the unionization of VFX studios, what do you think that means for the Marvel Cinematic Universe going forward? Because you're going to get less work for more money. So what does that mean in terms of the production process? Does it mean we're just going to get lower VFX heavy movies? Does it mean that we're just going to have to get directors who have more experience in this? That way they can plan better and have better visuals overall? Or do you think it's going to be something else?
So I think it'll be a combination of things. You've already talked about the fact that they probably need to do fewer projects anyway. So I think that this will give them the excuse and opportunity to do that. And so while movies might end up, at least on that end, costing more money, if they shrink the number of projects that they're doing, it'll probably be okay from that perspective. But
each movie is going to carry more weight then, right? Each movie is going to carry more weight. Like this, it has to be a success. Like, do you think budgets are going to go up, or do you think they're going to write the scripts for the visuals to go down in terms of how crazy they are?
I think some of them you can't do that. So like think about an X-Men movie, right? You've got how many people on an X-Men team, how many different sets of powers. So I think at some point, if you try to do that, you will write yourself into just an unsatisfying corner. So I think they just have to make fewer films and fewer projects and write what they write.
Okay.
That's my guess.
All right. So you don't think they're going to decrease the scope of their movies at all in order to fit a specific visual budget? You don't think so?
I don't. No.
Interesting. Do you think they're just going to have worse visual effects? Do you think that, or do you think the visual effects will go up in quality as a result?
Because
I mean, literally looking at the Marvels, like I had a heart. I was looking at it, watching that scene with Nick Fury and that ship. I'm like, this easily looks worse than Iron Man did in 2008. Easily.
The worst thing that I noticed about that film was that scene of the Skrull planet getting destroyed. Like that was the only one that was visually distracting to me. The rest of it just seemed normal. So if it's of the quality of what I saw here, I don't think it would bother me too much, with the exception of that one scene.
Well, one thing I do think that will help in defense of what you said is that we're going to have fewer scripts or fewer movies, therefore fewer scripts. One of the She-Hulk people involved in She-Hulk, I should say, said that the so-called bad VFX we see are because of half-baked scripts. That is not Victoria. That is Kevin. And even above Kevin, those issues should be addressed in pre-production. The timeline is not allowing the Marvel executives to sit with the material. So I guess on that front, it literally is just about things are moving so quickly. They just have to put something into production. And then by the time they get to a certain point, they have to revise it because, yeah.
And this is another thing, something we've talked about before. The other impact will probably be who they hire. So to the point that you made earlier about folks who have less experience with VFX, part of the Marvel problem that we've seen is people keep saying, well, because they aren't familiar with visual effects, they need something almost fully rendered before they can move on with the project. And that's not normal for folks who are more adept at working with visual effects. So you have these, I don't want to say novice directors, but directors who are not accustomed to working on visual effects, needing to see almost fully rendered projects before they can move on to the next thing. That's driving up costs, it's driving up time. And then you also have, so I think that's going to be another consequence too. They're going to be better about who they choose, which, that's going to cost more. So that's going to be interesting too.
Part of me is just like wants to be like, oh, wouldn't it be nice if we can get more mid-budget movies? That'd be pretty cool, wouldn't it? In theaters. That way you can get some mid-budget type stories to actually, help build these filmmakers into larger movies rather than going straight from 500 Days of Summer to The Amazing Spider-Man, Obviously, that's a bad example because it's not Marvel Studios, but you get the idea.
Yeah. Unfortunately, what was the film we were talking about? Demolition Man, right? Like, yeah, I've never seen nor heard of that director before or since. So I hear what you're saying, but I think that's just how Hollywood is sometimes.
Okay. Last thing with regards to Marvel. Things are still having issues, no matter, I don't know what I'm saying here. Things are changing. There are a couple things. There's a new schedule with the MCU because of the strike, and that'll transition to our next topic. But We now only have one movie coming out in 2024, and that's Deadpool 3 in July. We have Captain America 4 in 2025, Fantastic Four, Thunderbolts, and Blade. Those are all due for 2025, meaning next year, one Marvel movie. And then 4 the following year. But one of those movies has some issue. This rumor comes to us from Jeff Snyder, and that rumor is Brave New World, Captain America Brave New World is moving to 2025. One of the reasons why it's moving is because it didn't do great in test screenings, and that there are at least 3 sequences being cut with reshoots planned from January until May. So between the scheduling, I guess, a strike, and those issues, we're getting one movie. How does that make you feel, Jonesy, about the future of the MCU?
It doesn't bother me that we're not getting that many films. It does bother me that the following year they're going to try to cram in 4.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? They should just do 3 or 2. 4 is just too many movies.
That's a lot.
Just too many movies.
So 3 months, right? So every 3 months you'll get another one. That's quite a bit. And from this perspective, it makes sense. The pipeline from movie theater to home is so much faster than it used to be. In addition to that, they now have this entire streaming platform that they need to keep bolstered. So if they're going to feed the beast, which is their streaming platform, it does make sense to release that amount of content there. Okay, in 3 months, it's not going to be making that much money. Put it on the streaming service that people are continuing to pay for because they're getting these relatively new films that they can just watch. And so that's unfortunate. That's an unfortunate consequence of having to do this. What I hope it means is that they will back off of the shows for Disney Plus. Like that would be fantastic. 1,
maybe 2 a year, if that. Like, ideally for me, 2 shows and 2 movies.
Disney Plus should be the vault. Do you remember when you were a kid?
Yes.
And they would be like, oh,
yes,
come get this movie before it goes back in the Disney vault. Like, that's what this should be. This should be the Disney vault. And all it is a place where you go and watch all of the shit. Because it's already got like tens of thousands, if not millions of hours of shit to watch. So I don't understand why you think you have to make new content.
Well, I do. I understand because people complain. People complain if there's not new content. They do. They really do.
So those people are not the people they should. Okay. So let's put this another way then. Everything isn't for everyone. And there are people like me who have kids who not only enjoyed this stuff growing up, but have children that they would like to share it with. And so for me to do that, I would pay for that without any new or original content having come to Disney. I just would.
Well, I see your point. Everything isn't for everybody, but Disney wants their stuff to be for everybody. That's the difference. Is they want.
Yeah, that was a mistake.
There's a point of diminishing returns, in that they don't want to spend as much money as they spent on everything that they've done, and then there to be a ceiling of how high they can go because they've already. But
here's the consequence of that. They have to put more money into making more content, and then charge me more. And then I look at Disney Plus and go like, do I actually need this? Mm-hmm. That's the consequence.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair.
Do you know that the first? I know. I just want to jump back to this real quick. Do you know that the first Captain Marvel made $1.1 billion?
I did know that. Yeah.
This is not going to make that much money.
No, this movie's going to make like $400 million. if that. This is going to be Quantumania money.
Which is a shame because it is leaps and bounds better than the first one. It's better than. So Kyle, you posted that list of like the Rotten Tomatoes scores.
Yeah.
For those films. Not in any universe does this belong next to the Eternals or Quantumania. It just absolutely the fuck does not. It doesn't. I think that's nuts.
I think it does. I think about it in terms of Quantumania. I could see. I thought Quantumania is so everyone bad. Acted like that was like the Antichrist. It was fine.
It's not good.
Was entertaining.
It's not good.
It was no worse than this movie.
Yes, it was.
Okay.
100%. I couldn't stand it. And part of I thought from a filmmaking perspective, like we could talk about it later, but it is not. There's no way that Quantumania was on the same level as this.
Okay. Whatever you say, buddy. Whatever you say. I think they're on a similar playing field.
No. Mm-mm.
Okay. I think that there's a lot. I think there was a lot of potential for the Marvels that it didn't live up to, but I think the highs were high enough to the point where I was mostly okay with it.
Yeah.
Okay.
What else? What else you got?
Movies are coming back. TV shows are coming back. Slowly but surely.
Okay. Slowly but surely.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
There's SAG-AFTRA and the AMPTP. I think that's the right acronym, or initialism, rather. They have finally struck a deal. So this comes to us from the Hollywood Reporter. They say that Wednesday night, so that is the 8th of November. They said today's tentative agreement represents a new paradigm. It gives SAG-AFTRA the biggest contract gains in the history of the union, including the largest increase in minimum wages in the last 40 years, a brand new residual for streaming programs, extensive consent and compensation protections in the use of AI, and sizable contract increases on items across the board. The AMPTP is pleased to have reached a tentative agreement and looks forward to the industry resuming the work of telling great stories. And to sort of mirror that, SAG-AFTRA put out a piece, and they dig a little bit more into detail, saying that more than $1 billion in new wages and benefit funding is what they got as a part of the deal, streaming participation bonus, minimum compensation increases that break the so-called industry pattern. For the first time, consent and compensation guardrails on the use of AI. We still don't have specifics on that. And raise pension and health caps that will channel more value into our funds. And finally, critical protection for diverse communities. Still don't know what any of this is, but I know there were 2 points.
Words.
There was 1 point at least that was the big sticking point in the past couple of weeks regarding what the studios wanted, which was the ability to scan an actor's body, use them in perpetuity, even in death, without the consent of their surviving family members, and obviously without the consent of the dead person because they're dead. So that is something that is weird. It was very weird. I don't understand. And it's very clear to me that studios are just like, we just want to be able to just make things without people. What can we do to just automate everything? Just push a button, it writes the script, it acts it out, it edits itself, and then basically, boom, we make money. We push a button and money gets printed and delivered to us by a drone.
It's kind of funny how unionization does that in a lot of industries. Automation follows.
What?
Dude,
he's saying that when unions happen, that automation follows just to get rid of the humans.
Yeah.
So it's great that you unionize. It's great that
Always.
you've made more money. Now we're going to make less of you do the job, do the work. It's funny from this story, this AI thing. The only thing that I'll remember is Sean Penn talking about like, oh, you want my face, you want my body. Well, let me get your face, the face of your daughter, and let me do whatever I want. Like, what?
That was weird.
That was
weird.
Fucking weird, man. Weird.
Spicoli, man.
Jesus. It's weird. It's going to be hard for me to comment on this without actually seeing the deal itself. I am really curious, like how badly it sounded like the biggest sticking point for this deal was the AI. I'm curious what, if anything from AI survived in this contract. Do you think it did? Did you think that actors compromised in some way, some form?
Ooh.
Because I remember,
I can't imagine them doing that. I can't imagine them being able to compromise on that. I feel like the studios probably would have had to drop it completely because if there was any part of the AI deal, any remnant, any kernel from that one, I feel like that would
we'll
be
pay you
used
for
already.
it. We will compensate you for the use of your
But
likeness,
how?
and then we will.
But I maybe.
What do you
but
mean?
Like,
yeah, we put some sort.
I would be surprised. Yes, obviously it's possible. I would be surprised just because this was such a big thing. I can't imagine them being like, okay, we'll leave that little bit in there just for now, just to get things going. It has ramifications across the board.
I'm trying to think. I can't think of somebody that this might apply to, but let's pick Harrison Ford. Even I know he wouldn't go in for this. He's been around for a long time. He's got he wants this so that his kids can still make something, right?
Let's do okay, go ahead, continue. Sorry.
No, that was it. Like it's a form of a pension that exists so that, you know, your heirs can continue to make money. I could see that happening. And you know, it's funny, to Kyle's point, like I immediately started thinking of the Jetsons, right? So the movie studio execs are basically the Jetsons. They just want to push a button and pump out a bunch of Harrison Ford movies after he's dead. So like, hey, let's make another Tom Clancy movie, Harrison Ford, push a button, and then his heirs get paid.
And protection.
I think it's cute, Kyle, that you think that unionization is the reason why automation.
No, it was just me making a joke. Automation is going to come no matter what, but there are things that can speed it up, and that goes to like when I was saying all the people that were super supportive of the strikes, and then price increases were announced, and they're like, let's pirate it, and it's like, well, all the revenue they just struck for is gone because you're going to pirate it anyways. It's just, I'm just having a little fun at the nuance. I was going to say something else, and then I completely lost it because of that, but whatever.
I take both of your points. To me, it's not the fault of the unions, it's the greed of the corporations, right? That lead to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
And that would happen no matter what. Like they're always, if there's a way, like AI is increasing with such ridiculousess that, they're going to find a way to use it to make money. Yes, Kyle, what's up?
That's what I was going to say. The one of the potential like guarantees is maybe instead of instead of an infinite, limitless time to use the AI, they have to renew the contract with the estate every so often. That could be a protection, so.
Yeah, yep. I don't think necessarily not being able to utilize their likeness was the deal. It was just without being notified, compensated, or whatever. I think that's the big deal.
Yeah, I'm really curious.
Weird. Well, I'm interested to see what the specifics of the deal are.
Well,
going forward,
even in the thing that you posted, it says for the first time, consent and compensation guardrails on the use of AI. So I do think that there is something in there that will allow the studios to continue to do the thing that they want to do. They're just going to have to notify.
They're going to have to deal with people first. Oh,
it's not going to be a free
lunch. No, it's ridiculous. So the compensation guardrails of AI, I'm really curious what that looks like.
Probably what we just talked about.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's it. I think that's it for now. Shut it down.
All right, folks. If you like what you heard, do all the socials, like, rate, comment, subscribe, share. We would definitely appreciate it. Also, I'm sure it would make Kyle very happy.
Yes, it would.
Find us on the Genreverse Podcast Network on YouTube, and we will catch you on the next one. Hasta lasagna.
Bye.